Hello, my name is Jen Riley, and I'm a Senior Transportation Planner at the Connecticut DOT in our agency's Sustainability and Resiliency Group, and I serve as the department's electric vehicle subject matter expert. I want to thank you for joining me today as I give you a brief update on the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, or NEVI, Fiscal 24 Plan Update. And I'll also be sharing with you where we are in our 2023 grant solicitation schedule. So to begin with, here is a high-level summary of the NEVI program. I thought it might be helpful to give you a little refresher of what this program entails and highlight some of the guidance the Federal Highway and Joint Office provided us on what and where we can spend federal money on regarding building out public EV charging infrastructure throughout the state. NEVI is part of the $5 billion that was allocated for EV charging in the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act of 2021. The IIJA formula funding gives approximately $52 million to Connecticut over a 5-year time frame. And the first phase of Connecticut's NEVI funding supports expanding EV charging stations on private sites, especially along Connecticut's alternative fuel corridors, which is about 350 miles. Per the federal regulations, each site needs to have 4 fast chargers located at intervals of 50 miles or less, and they need to be sited no more than 1 drivable mile from one of Connecticut's alternative fuel corridors. The federal guidance also states that 40% of the benefits from EV chargers must be in disadvantaged communities, low income, and/or Justice 40 communities. Now let's look at more of the specifics of Connecticut's plan. This slide is reviewing the components of the first phase of our NEVI plan, which is to build out direct current fast chargers, or DCFCs, along Connecticut's alternative fuel corridors. Remember, these are the types of chargers that take less than a half an hour to fully charge most electric vehicles. This chart summarizes the 5 corridors broken down by interstate and state routes that will be eligible for the first phase of Connecticut's grant solicitation. In our fiscal year 22 and 23 NEVI plan, we identified 10 zones throughout the state for considerations as priority zones for Phase 1 build-out of our state's NEVI program. You can see that we have indicated how many site locations would be built and the approximate minimum number of charging ports that would be installed along the corresponding corridor. The NEVI minimum standard requires that each location must have at a minimum 4 CCS fast charging ports. Here in Connecticut, we are debating adding more ports at each station along these corridors because they're located along major thoroughfares. We are expecting substantial EV charging demand by 2030 and beyond, especially after looking at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory's recent modeling, which is predicting that in 2030, Connecticut would have approximately 340,000 plug-in electric vehicles on the road, and we need the infrastructure built to support that many electric vehicles. So there have been lots of questions regarding scheduling of our NEVI program, especially questions around our grant solicitation. Here's our current schedule. Most of you are probably familiar with this. There was outreach done last spring and summer, and we submitted our fiscal 22-23 state plan to the Joint Office by the August 1st deadline. Federal Highway approved our plan in mid-September of 2022, and Federal Highway put out a new set of NEVI standards and requirements in February of this year, which we are incorporated into our grant solicitation. Through all of this, behind the scenes, we have been developing our NEVI solicitation, and we are learning there are a lot of procedural aspects that come with federal funding, and that we're working our way through them all. In the meantime, this June, Federal Highway put out additional NEVI program guidance that we've been digesting. Long story short, we plan to release our grant solicitation for Phase 1 of the NEVI program, which is focused on building DC fast chargers along Connecticut's alternative fuel corridors in the fall of this year. So stay tuned. If you haven't already, please join our NEVI email distribution list where we will notify you of updates to the program. And that link is here on this slide. So in case you weren't aware, the new federal charging standards that were released in February of this year affect all Title 23 programs, not just NEVI. And the goals of these requirements are working to make charging more predictable and a reliable experience by ensuring there are consistent plug types, power levels, and a minimum number of chargers capable of supporting drivers' fast charging needs. There are Buy America provisions included and also a 97 uptime requirement. And this is to ensure that chargers are working when drivers need them to. Drivers will not have to use multiple apps and accounts to charge because there will be a single method of identification across all chargers. Another feature that was included in the standards was real-time info sharing, which the Joint Office is still determining who will have access to the data. But this could be really instrumental for all of us in determining success of the program and aiding with infrastructure modeling needs. In the next couple of slides, I want to walk you through the major requirements for the new fiscal year 24 NEVI plan update, including mentioning a couple new things we're required to include. One of them is the definition of fully built out, which the federal government classifies as meeting the minimum NEVI standard of having 4 ports, 150 kW per port, 600 kW station power, and being located 1 drivable mile from the freeway or alternative fuel corridor. So again, some of the major elements for updating the plan: public engagement and agency collaboration is a major theme for the NEVI program, and we are working on ensuring we keep our lines of communication open. We need to ensure we include a new community engagement outcomes report that we will be developing, and this is one of the things we want feedback on from stakeholders. How can we provide more opportunities to participate in stakeholder sessions and plan development? This is what we need to know. Also posted in plan requirements are to continue ongoing commitments to work with disadvantaged communities and tribes. For the last NEVI plan, Connecticut DOT worked closely with DEEP's EJ working group that was organized to provide input into the Regional Transportation Climate Initiative. That group since has been folded into the Connecticut Equity and Environmental Justice Advisory Council, or CJAC, which was established under Executive Order number 21-3. So we hope to continue dialogue with those participating members and other organizations. Also, we need to have ongoing consultation with the utilities, which Connecticut DOT NEVI staff have been meeting with the EDCs on a monthly basis for over a year now. And we have learned a great deal about their experience implementing fast chargers through their make-ready programs. So in regard to a future conditions analysis, we are going to reevaluate our DC fast charger gap analysis to account for the new stations built since 2022, when the first NEVI plan was filed. Like I mentioned earlier, we don't have access to sufficient data to go back and inventory and categorize all the existing data to ensure that an existing station meets all the 680 conformance requirements in the new federal guidance. So we're going to be waiting to see how the federal government will be assisting us on that point. There are some other new key elements of what the Joint Office wants to see updated within our state NEVI plan. We need to provide a summary on our state's contracting solicitation approach. One new thing I want to point out is they want us to identify and quantify expected EV charging benefits to disadvantaged communities. This is a new requirement that the Joint Office has provided us some guidance on, but we would welcome other suggestions on. We also need to expand the freight planning and truck charging section of our plan, and then provide standard updates on reliability, utility interconnection issues, and then labor and workforce development. I do want to take this opportunity, since I have you, to address the different connector types of DC fast chargers, because I've been getting lots of questions about this topic in general. I want to remind you that the federal minimum standards set a baseline to ensure the national EV charging network is interoperable between different charging companies. The minimum standards allow flexibility to support industry innovation in this evolving field, and to allow states, communities, and our partners to build charging infrastructure that meets local needs. For example, federally funded fast chargers are required to include combined charging system connectors. These are the CCS at each charging location. And these connectors are used by most automakers today. But some states may also offer other connector types, such as the CHAdeMO, established by Toyota, Nissan, and Mitsubishi, or the North American Charging Standard, NACS, developed by Tesla. That last connector, the NACS connector, is the one so many people have been asking me about. The NEVI standards and requirements, if you're really curious, you can see 23 CFR 680.106C allow for permanently attached non-proprietary connectors, such as NACS, to be provided on each charging port, so as long as the requirements of the regulations are met. So what that means is that each charging port has to have at least one permanently attached CCS type 1 connector, and it has to be capable of charging a CCS compliant vehicle. How many NACS or CHAdeMO plugs we install at each location during phase 1 of our grant solicitation in Connecticut is still being determined, and we would welcome people to share their thoughts with us on this topic. Electric vehicles are growing in popularity in Connecticut and also across the nation. With more emphasis on cleaner transportation and meeting our clean air and greenhouse gas goals, Connecticut is positioned to become a leader in EV adoption. Not to mention that as more federal dollars become available for EV charging, now is a perfect time for MPOs, COGs, town officials, and others to prepare for the transition to electric vehicles and the deployment of EV infrastructure. Here are some suggestions and resources that you could pass on to the folks you work with. This is not a complete list by any means, but I think these actions, if thought about now, could really help your regions and the state build a robust EV network. So here are some questions we put together for consideration on this call. If you could read through these and provide us comments, either today or by email, we'd greatly appreciate it. I'm just going to read through them quickly. Do you have any recommendations for the Community Engagement Outcomes Report? How would you like to see Connecticut DOT quantify expected EV charging benefits to disadvantaged communities? Would you be in favor of including NACS and/or CHAdeMO connections in addition to the 4 required CCS connectors at Phase 1 site locations? If so, how many? Regarding the importance of characteristics for locating DC fast chargers stations during Phase 1, please rate the following from 1, least important, to 10, most important. A, proposal fills a charging gap. B, proposal offers a higher percentage, greater than 20% of the non-federal funding match. C, proposal emphasizes station safety, accessibility, and convenience. D, proposal is within an environmental justice area as defined by the Justice 40 initiative, or able to directly serve low-income, minority, or other disadvantaged populations. E, proposal serves corridors with higher traffic and truck volumes. F, proposal provides redundancy along an AFC, alternative fuel corridor, and which this means more infrastructure in areas of high demand. G, proposal already hosts EV charging infrastructure and only requires upgrades to meet NEVI criteria. H, proposal requires minimal operating assistance. So if we could rank those from 1 least important to 10 most important, that'd be helpful for us. And then question 5, please share any other feedback that could help us in updating our NEVI fiscal year 24 plan. We realize this is a short turnaround to get public comment in. We only had 2 months notice by the joint office to do this plan update, so we're trying to squeeze it into that block of time. We would like to have comments in by the end of day on July 21st. You can email your comments to Connecticut-DOT-EV-planning@ct.gov, and please put in subject line 2023 update to the Connecticut NEVI plan. Here's where you can find more information on NEVI. The webpage, which will be updated soon, has everything you ever wanted to know about NEVI, including our state's fiscal year 22-23 plan. So if you haven't already read it yet, here's your chance. And here's my email, Jen Riley. You can reach out to me regarding NEVI's program, the NEVI program. I will try to get an answer to you. But know that questions about the grant solicitation won't be available until after we publish the solicitation. Other than that, I want to thank all the participants today for tuning in, and please reach out to us. We really appreciate the time that goes into your comments, and we look forward to hearing and reading what you sent to us. Thanks so much.